I think Stockport Council may be exploiting young primary school children and allowing them to be given misinformation. So I went along to public question time to put this to Mark Roberts, the deputy leader who's in charge of climate change.
Whilst these children made commendable presentations about recycling and composting at their schools, it seems that some councillors see them as future recruits to be councillors themselves and push their net zero agenda, without truly understanding the implications it will have upon their lives. Before I went along, the council vetted my question and removed words such as exploitation or blatant lies.
So I'll let you decide what you think.
The third question is from Steve Hatton to Councillor Mark Roberts.
Thank you. You invited primary school children to July's meeting to offer their ideas in support of your political net zero agenda. These children had clearly been taught the false information which is being used to destroy the life choices of their generation. And they also quoted disputed scientific theory as fact. They stated that carbon dioxide is, quote, destroying our atmosphere. Nonsense. Carbon dioxide is the most essential critical nutrient for all plant life. It represents a minuscule 0.04% of our atmosphere. 96% of it is generated by nature alone, not us. These trusting children repeated your mantra that CO2, quote, raises global temperatures. But I've challenged you many times, and you are unable to reference a single robust scientific study to back up this claim. Humanity has been exposed to relentless promotion of this unproven CO2 warming myth. But scientists know that much higher levels occurred during ice ages. Trusted dissenting scientists, from David Bellamy to recent Nobel Prize winners, have all been routinely silenced by the media, education and politicians. If net zero was about saving these kids' environment, the lucrative chemicals destroying our soils and their health would surely have been banned by now. Instead, the World Economic Forum and the United Nations exploit the myth to transform us into a global, controlled, digitized workforce. Most of these kids will live in highly surveilled lives, dependent upon billionaires' global corporations, with bicycles their only form of private transport. UK F.I.R.E.S, this government research paper, states emphatically that their net zero targets will require an end to affordable petrol cars, affordable gas heating, air travel, even shipping and nutritious red meat, before these children reach their mid-30s. Did you tell them this? To be fair to these 10-year-olds, will you please tell them the full, harsh reality of net zero? Please will you also correct their primary schools on basic carbon dioxide facts? Thank you.
I should warn you that Mark has built something of a reputation over the last year and a half of not actually answering the specific question. So let's see if he's going to correct the scientific inaccuracies, and let's see if he's prepared to let these children see the brutal reality of his net zero world.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, and thank you for your question, Mr. Hatton. As you know, we do fundamentally disagree, and I am content that the members in this chamber of all sorts of different political parties are on my side of the divide rather than yours. Collectively, this chamber was elected with tens of thousands of Stockport's voters putting their faith in us and the priorities that we have, including recognising, tackling and leading the efforts of our community against climate change.
Forgive me for interrupting. It's just that the public don't get the chance to do so in the chamber itself. Yes, thousands of people elected you, but the vast majority of people in every part of Stockport didn't vote for any of your political parties. They've lost faith in them. We know that they all have an unwritten pact, that they will never challenge each other on climate policies. So the public has no choice. These children rely upon you for education and facts.
I am proud that we are educating our young people to be responsible citizens who care for the planet and the environment of which we are custodians. I am not going to apologise for that. I'm also proud that they reject the nonsense from climate conspiracy theorists and have the critical thinking needed to take a well-rounded view of the world, and are not afraid to challenge authority, like Stockport Council, to do more for their future.
Regulars to Stockport Council Watch will recognise this long worn-out method of avoiding any detailed facts. By criticising us or calling us conspiracy theorists, Mark feels he can divert away from the actual question. So how can these children possibly have a well-rounded view? They've been bombarded, probably since birth, with climate alarmism. And now they seem to be given false facts. Mark has organised a school's debate on climate change, but also totally refused to have any public debate or listen to any climate scientists that we've offered to bring into the chamber
to discuss the fundamental scientific contradictions.
This is a reoccurring theme across the whole mainstream media and political establishment. What is it that they have to hide from these experts who are speaking out?
Your question demonstrates, again, a lack of understanding on the subject, and I have urged you to get proper carbon literacy training to help you understand the issue.
Carbon literacy training is the new education or indoctrination for everybody in the corporate world to be brought on board with the global narrative around carbon dioxide. I pointed out many inconsistencies to Mark, but he ignored all of those, and when I asked him to postpone this programme within Stockport Council, his response was predictably brief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hatton, there are a number of inaccuracies and falsehoods in your question. No, the Council will not stop offering carbon literacy training to members.
Yes, he just ignored all the evidence that I presented to him, because for now he can still get away with that. Anyway, let's press on with his latest response.
You come here as a political activist pushing an agenda that isn't based in the reality of the world that I live in.
I do empathise with the world you live in, Mark. I also used to be convinced that carbon dioxide was causing global warming. I just listened to the mainstream media and thought, well, they wouldn't lie to me. Why would they lie? But obviously, they want to take away from us our efficient gas heating, our right to travel in private cars, airline flights. This is the world they're creating for these young, innocent children.
And it's not just in Stockport. The school's climate assembly is terrifying children everywhere.
I wonder what their parents would think.
You are entitled to have your own opinion, but you are wrong. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Haha, so there we have it. I've become very thick-skinned over the last year and a half.
I've highlighted dozens of scientific contradictions, and Mark has been unable to challenge a single one of them.
Sadly, these children will now be marched into a world where there are no cars, there are no holiday flights, no red meat, a stark net zero world, which Mark is unwilling to tell them about. And Mark's boss, Mark Hunter, the council leader, has refused point blank to tell the public how much they're spending on these green policies, including their cycle lanes, which seem to be appearing everywhere.
Increases. Will you please at least tell voters the cost of your net zero policies?
The costs of our green policies are nothing, as but nothing, compared to the cost of doing nothing.
I got a more straightforward response from the Freedom of Information Department. They told me that it was manifestly unreasonable for the public to ask for this information. I beg to differ, but I don't think Mark is a bad guy. I think, just like the rest of us, he's a victim who's been exposed to decades of constant programming around this idea that carbon dioxide is the problem. We've all experienced it. We've all seen the climate alarmism, and these children have felt it more than anyone. But it is Mark's duty to look at the science, because I was more surprised than anyone to find that that science actually wasn't there. But ever since David Bellamy, a household name in the UK, spoke out against this idea that man was causing climate change, every scientist that comes forward is sidelined by the mainstream media and the political establishment. We've got a Nobel Prize winner from 2022, Dr. John Clauser, He's come out very openly and called the climate change idea a crock of crap. These are strong words. Why would these esteemed global level scientists come out and risk their reputations to say this? They're trying to sound a warning bell to humanity. And it's down to us and to people like Mark Roberts who are implementing the policies to listen to what they're saying to us. Of course, we're not in denial that the climate changes. The planet has been warming since about 1700, when we had a mini ice age. The warming didn't start because of carbon dioxide and the Industrial Revolution. It started way before that. Another inconvenient fact. It's an essential gas for all plant life in a perfect virtuous circle called photosynthesis. And to underline this, just look at horticulturalists all around the world. They pump carbon dioxide into greenhouses to increase crop yields. The extra carbon dioxide which humans are producing is good news. All around the world, we can see it is increasing vegetation. And this is great news because we have 8 billion people to feed. When the planet warms, carbon dioxide seeps out of the seas and the oceans, just like it does from a fizzy drink on a warm day. It's the same type of process on a much larger scale. So if carbon dioxide is the product of global warming, it's down to people like Mark Roberts to explain to the public how it can possibly be also the cause of global warming. The net zero control agenda is a global agenda, but it's been enacted locally by people like Mark Roberts and Mark Hunter. It's not their fault, and they have a responsibility to local people who pay their council tax to look into the science rather than deny us the opportunity to debate. CO2 has been demonised to make the workers of this world accept that they can no longer have the privileges which civilization brought them. This is the creation of a serf world at a time when we know that billionaires hold more wealth proportionately than ever in history. And they can buy carbon credits to justify their jet-set world. For too many years, politicians have been trying to conflate environmentalism with control of resources, and therefore the control of humans. This is called communism. It's been tried in the past, and it fails every time. China itself slipped gradually into communism through the indoctrination by Mao Zedong of the young children, generation by generation, turning them against the ways of their parents, then pouncing with an ever more authoritarian regime. Although these councillors and children genuinely believe this science that they've been taught, they seem oblivious to the parallels with what happened in China. It was quite disturbing to see a range of councillors preparing these 10-year-old leaders to take this agenda of net zero control into the future.
You are our hope for the future, you really are. It's about you taking an idea that you feel really, really passionately about and speaking about it in public and trying to persuade other people that it's really important.
Definitely future leaders.
I have no doubt that we'll see some of you sitting in these seats in years to come.
I'm sure, beyond any doubt, we have some future leaders, some future councillors.
Do you wonder if these children will grow up in a more authoritarian world,
where giant global corporations, banks and politicians work in tandem with one another to restrict travel and resources for these children as they grow older?
And as pensioners struggle for heating, do you wonder if the signs are here already? Now is the time to demand answers from people like Mark Roberts, the council leader Mark Hunter, and politicians all the way up the tree. The United Nations and the World Economic Forum, with Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, they've been planning this for a long, long time. It's not Mark and people like him who are driving this agenda, but he does have a responsibility to look at the evidence on behalf of the public and question the policies which he is espousing. Behind this whole agenda is a multi-trillion-dollar green energy industry. The same elites are making a killing purely because our governments force you to subsidise them through our energy bills. Wind turbines and solar energy are totally reliant upon the weather. We could never produce enough lithium and cobalt to provide the number of batteries that the world would need to store this energy for when we need it.
We all know the green energy industry is wholly inadequate. So workers and pensioners will have to do without or foot the bill for billionaires.
My final word is for the children here who are caught in the crossfire. All I ask is that Mark tells them what is truly planned for their net zero world, and that he comes clean with these children about the science of carbon dioxide. It's not their enemy, it's their friend. It's the gas of life, which produces all the food on this planet. We just ask for honesty and integrity and openness to talk and have dialogue with the public. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments below.